Good morning, Math 10s. We're moving on to our last unit in 10C, which is a unit on measurement. This will be the first of 4 lessons. What I'm doing is I'm not going to be working through our student workbook. Instead, everybody should have received on the Google Classroom a copy of this note package. So you need to have this note package printed out, and all of your homework will be within this note package. If we assign any additional worksheets, we will upload those. To go through this unit, what you want to have in front of you is this note package, which you'll be writing your notes in, and you also want to print out a copy of your formula sheet. So in Math 10C, you have a single-sided formula sheet, and the majority of the formulas on this formula sheet are for this unit. So this first box here, linear measurement conversions, we're going to be using this box for this lesson. And then all of these measurement formulas are going to be in lessons 2 and 3 when we do surface area and volume. And then you have 2 other small areas of formulas: exponent laws was from your numbers and exponents unit, and the formulas for linear functions. Okay, so as we go through this, like I said, you will want to have each lesson this formula sheet printed and in front of you so that you could copy down the notes. Okay, the first lesson, it's going to be on converting and how are you at converting. And I'm going to show you a really particular method that I want you to use for converting. Before we do that, what we're converting between is 2 systems, and the 2 systems are known as the metric system and the imperial system. So just make yourself a couple of notes. The metric system is the system that we use in Canada. And that's our official system of measuring units. It's also known as the SI system. And basically what it's based off of is the meter. So the meter is the basic unit of length, and all other units are based on multiples of 10. Okay. So for example, 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. That would be a multiple of 10. The imperial system, that is what the system that is used in the US. Canada, like I said, is the metric system or the SI system, and Canadian students are really well versed in both systems because in Canada, even though our official system is the metric system, we actually have adopted quite a few things. And we use quite a few imperial units. So I'll give you an example. We often, if I said, how tall are you? Many people would come and say, okay, well, I'm 5 feet, 7 inches. Feet and inches are imperial units, right? So that's basically the US system. If you were truly converting on the metric system, you'd be giving me your height in centimeters. And if you look on your driver's license or when you get your driver's license, your height is actually stated in centimeters. So this whole lesson is going to be on how proficient you will be at converting between these 2 systems. I use to convert a method called unit analysis. There's different methods to use. In Science 10, they're going to teach you converting, and I believe they're going to teach you something called proportional reasoning, where you make one fraction equal to another fraction. Unit analysis I teach because this is the method that you're going to use when you get into 30-1 and you're converting between degrees and radians. Unit analysis by far will be the easiest. Now I'm going to show you with a very basic example how unit analysis works, and then we'll do questions, and the questions are going to get more complex. So when I first start, sometimes students will say, oh, I could just do this in my head. Do I really need to use unit analysis? And the answer is you need to completely understand unit analysis for when I get more complex. Okay, so just even if it seems tedious at first, just set it up this way. So I'll give you an example of how it's written. So this is sort of the notes. And here's how we do this. So let's say I said 340 centimeters is equal to how many meters? Okay, many of you would be able to do this on your head. What you're going to do for this class, though, is you're going to go to your formula sheet and you're going to look at the conversion and find the conversion that has the centimeter and the meter, and it's right here. 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. So you always write down what that conversion is. So 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. Then what you do is you take what I gave you. So I gave you 340 centimeters. So you take what I give you, which is 340 centimeters, and you multiply that by a ratio. And the ratio is going to have to do with this conversion here. So what you do is between the 1 meter and the 100 centimeters, you have to pick one of these to put on the top and one of these to put on the bottom. The units you want go on top. So if I want meters, that's what I want, then meters goes on top. And the other one, which is the centimeter, would go on the bottom. And the reason why you always put what you want on top is because now centimeters over centimeters would cancel. Now, this multiplication would be 340 times 1, which is just 340, and then that number divided by 100, because 100 is on the bottom, so that means divide. So it would be 340 divided by 100, and our answer would be 3.4 meters. Okay, so we're going to do several examples so that you could see this, and then like I said, the examples will just get more and more complex. Okay, so let's do that exact same method, which is called unit analysis for this question here. 1 yard is equal to how many feet? So you go to your formula sheet and you have to find the conversion that converts a yard to a foot or a foot to a yard. And it's right here. And I'm always going to write it in red. Okay, so I'm going to write that conversion. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So that's your first step, is to write your conversion. The second step is to actually do the unit analysis. So take what you were given, and we were given 7 yards. You will always multiply with unit analysis, and you will always multiply by, this is going to be turned into a fraction. What you want goes on top. So between either the 1 or the 3, what I want goes on top. This is what I want. I want feet. So 3 feet goes on top. Therefore, this 1 yard would go on the bottom. And then always double check. A yard and a yard cancel. 7 times 3 is 21 feet. Okay, let's do this one. What was the conversion between a yard and an inch on my formula sheet? So if I go back to my formula sheet, the conversion between a yard and an inch, 1 yard is equal to 36 inches. Okay, so what was step 2? Once you have your conversion, take what you were given, always say multiply, and you're going to multiply by the conversion. So between these two numbers, one of these numbers will go on top of my fraction and one will go on the bottom. One goes in the numerator, one goes in the denominator. What I want goes on top. So then I go to what they were asking. They want inches. So 36 inches goes on top. That means that this 1 yard would go on the bottom. A yard over a yard would cancel. And my answer is going to be 5 times 36, which is 180 inches. Let's go from an inch to a yard. So sort of the opposite of this, an inch to a yard. So it's the same conversion. 1 yard is equal to 36 inches. So I'm going to write that down. Okay, take what you were given, times it by the conversion. What I want, in this case it's yards, that is the one that goes on top. So this 1 yard, I want yards, so 1 yard has to go on top from my conversion. If the 1 yard goes on top, that means that the 36 inches goes in the denominator. check that inches over inches cancel. And remember, say to yourself, is this 108 times 36? No, this is 108 divided by 36. If your number is on the bottom, it's going to be 108 times 1, which is 108, and that number divided by 36. If you type that in on your calculator, the answer is 3 yards. What I'm left with is yards. Okay, D, miles to inches. So this is where D, I'm just going to star this. We're going to get slightly more complex, is with D and E. So let's do D, miles to inches. So I go to my formula sheet and I'm like, what's the conversion from a mile to an inch? It goes from a mile to a yard or a mile to a foot. Here's a mile to a kilometer. And that's it. So you'd say, well, how do I go from miles to inches? You have to do this. This would be called a double conversion. So there's different pathways that you could do to get to your answer. But watch this. I can go from miles to yards as my first conversion. And then once I have yards, I can go, let's say, from yards to inches, because 1 yard is equal to 36 inches. Right? That was one of the pathways I could do. If I said in class, okay, is there another pathway I could have done? Students would say, yeah. Could you have done this? Go from miles to feet, right? Because 1 mile is 5280 feet. So another pathway I could have done was miles to feet. And then check, can we go from feet to inches? And that would be down here, feet to inches. So it doesn't matter which pathway you take, you would get the exact same answer. You just have to find one pathway. So I'm going to use this pink one. I'm going to go from miles to feet to inches. So let's write the conversion first from miles to feet. Okay, so from miles to feet, it was 1 mile is 5280 feet. So I'm going to write down that conversion. 1 mile is equal to 5280 feet. All right, take what we're given, 3 miles, and multiply it by your conversion. And I first want to get to feet. I want my answer in feet first. So that means that feet go on top. And the 1 mile goes on the bottom. And a mile would cancel. So it's going to be 3 times 5280. And I would get 15,840 feet. Okay, so now I have feet, right? So now I've got feet and I need to go to inches. So now I need to look on my formula sheet. What was that conversion between feet and inches? So the conversion was 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So I'm going to write that down. Okay, take what we were given. So now we're at 15,840 feet. And now I'm going to multiply that. I'm going to do the unit analysis for this conversion here. Now what do I want? I want inches. So inches goes on top and feet goes on the bottom. 1 foot goes on the bottom. A foot and a foot will cancel. What I'm left with is my answer in inches. So I take that 15,840 and I multiply it by 12 to get my answer. And my answer is 190,080 inches. Okay. E is very similar. If we were in class, I would get you set up with this one and then I would say, okay, try to solve this one on your own. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to set you up for this one, and then I want to see if you could pause and solve this. So let's see if we can find the pathway to go from a mile to an inch. So let's go to our formula sheet. Let's find the pathway a mile to an inch. So, and let's take a different pathway. Or we could do the same pathway. Let's see, 1 mile goes to 5280 feet. And then once we get a foot, we could go to an inch, right? So let's go from miles to feet and then feet to inches. So let's do this pathway here. Miles to feet, and once you're in feet, convert to inches. So the first conversion that you'll need is the miles to feet, and that's 1 mile is 5280 feet. So let's write that down. So this is where you would pause me and see if you can convert this guy to feet first. And then once you're in feet, see if you can go from the conversion from feet to inches. Okay, so if you're unpaused, let's see if you did this correctly. Take what you're given, 5.5 miles. I'm converting that to feet first. So what I want is feet, and what I want goes on top. So 5280 feet goes on top, 1 mile goes on the bottom, a mile and a mile cancel, and 5.5 times 5280. Would give me 29,040 feet. Oops, let me just check. 29,040 feet. Now I have to do my conversion from feet to inches, and I have it written right here. So I'm going from feet to inches. If I want inches, inches goes on top. What I want always goes on top. So 12 inches goes on top, 1 foot goes on the bottom, a foot and a foot will cancel, and I'm going to take my answer of 29,040 and multiply it by 12 to give me my final answer of 348,480 inches. So 348,480 inches. And that would be my answer. Okay, so after that, what I think would probably be best is for you to pause this and do number 7. Okay, so 3 quick conversions here. So you want to do number 7, convert 3 feet to inches, 63 yards to feet, and 48 inches to feet. Get that done as practice. And you want to do 8A. Okay, when you're done that, then you could go back, because now I'm going to introduce you to more converting, and I'll do that in the same video, more converting, but it's going to be a different type of converting. Okay, so if you finish that, those 4 questions for practice, let's move on. Like I said, we're still dealing with converting. We're just going to look at something a bit different. So what they're saying is convert 51 inches to feet and inches. So this is sort of what they want our answer to look like. 51 inches is equal to how many feet and how many inches. So the first thing you do in order to answer this is we're first going to convert 51 feet or inches to feet. Okay, so we're first going to go inches to feet. So I'm going to look at my formula sheet, and I need to get the formula for an inch to a foot, and it's right here. 1 foot is 12 inches. I'm going to write down that formula. So I always write down what my, sorry, not formula, what the conversion is. Now let's take what we're given, 51 inches, and let's convert that to feet. They want it in feet first. So if they want feet, what they want goes on top. So 1 foot goes on top and 12 inches goes on the bottom. Do your canceling. An inch and an inch cancel. And what I'm left with, I'm going to have a decimal because this, I hope you see, is 51 divided by 12. So make sure everybody's doing this on their calculator. I want you to, these questions are really important to do with me. So take your calculators out and type in on your calculators 51 divided by 12. And I'm going to get 4.25. So let's write that down. And my units are feet. Okay, we just figured out actually the first part of this problem. They want to know 51 inches is how many feet? And that answer is 4. So whatever number is in front of the decimal, you write there. Okay, so 4 feet. Now what I have to do is I have to figure out this little decimal here. How many inches is this decimal? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to get rid of this 4 because I already put the 4 up here. So go to your calculator and subtract whatever number was in front of your decimal, which in this case is 4. And I'm left with that 0.25. So write down that 0.25. And that was feet, right? The decimal was in feet. Now what we have to do is we have to convert that decimal, which is in feet. How many inches is that decimal? So I'm going to say, okay, times, and I'm going to do my unit analysis. If I want inches, I go back to my conversion, and inches now goes on top. So 12 inches goes on top, and 1 foot goes on the bottom. And a foot will cancel. And I take that decimal and I multiply it by 12. So take your decimal, multiply it by 12, and I get 3. That goes up here. 51 inches is equal to 4 feet, 3 inches. Let's do B. So B, it's going to be the same thing. However, we're going to even take it one step further. So again, make sure you're following along this, like writing this down with me, but also typing it into your calculator. This is definitely something you don't just want to be sitting and watching. Okay, 51 inches, we first have to convert inches to yards. That's my first conversion. So I need to look on my formula sheet, the conversion for an inch to a yard. So let's go down here, an inch to a yard. Here's a yard and inches. So I need to write down 1 yard is equal to 36 inches. So always write down your conversion. Then, same steps over and over. Take what you're given, hit times, and we're going to multiply it by a fraction, and the fraction is our conversion. What I want goes on top. I want yards. 1 yard goes on top, 36 inches go on the bottom. For these types of questions, you will always get decimal answers. For these where they want it converted into different units, you're always going to start with a decimal. So this would be 51 divided by 36. So I'm just going to cancel inches to inches. And let's see what 51 divided by 36 is. So clear your calculators, have a nice screen. 51 divided by 36. And that is going to be 1.416 repeating. 1.416 repeating. My units are yards. Okay, so what are we going to do? They wanted to know 51 inches is equal to how many yards? I now have that answer. You take the number in front of your decimal. So 51 inches is 1 yard. Now I have to take this decimal in yards, right? Whatever this little decimal is, and I need to convert that to my second conversion, which is feet. So I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to get rid of that 1 because I put that 1 up. So go to your calculators and subtract whatever number is in front of your decimal. And I get 0.416 repeating. And that we know my units are in yards. Now I need to convert yards, right, to feet, yards to feet. So I need to go to my formula sheet and find what was the conversion from a yard to a foot. Here's yards and here's feet. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So write that down somewhere. Let's hit times, and you times it by the conversion. What you want, so we're now going to feet, that goes on top. So 3 feet goes on the top, and 1 yard goes on the bottom. A yard and a yard will cancel, and I'm going to take that decimal and I'm going to multiply it by 3, and my answer's in feet. So then I'll be able to write this answer in. So that decimal on your calculator times 3 is 1.25 feet. Okay, do you know what you're going to write here? What do you think? You are going to write the number in front of your decimal. That 1 will go there. Okay, go to your calculator, get rid of that 1, and we're going to be left with 0.25 feet. So go to your calculator, get rid of that 1, and we're left with 0.25 feet. And now we need to convert that from feet to inches. So on your formula sheet, 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So from here, if I want inches, inches goes on top. 1 foot goes on the bottom, and a foot will cancel. So you take that decimal and you multiply it by 12. And you get 3. So 51 inches is the same thing as 1 yard, 1 foot, 3 inches. A lot was happening in this example here, so I definitely recommend that if you didn't understand this, that you re-watch that. And then I believe, I guess I'll have 2 other examples here. So let's go through these 2 examples, and then I will give you, there's going to be 2 that you could practice for homework as well. Okay, so again, same thing. Let's see if we could figure this out. Okay, convert 6,235 feet to miles first. So let's find our conversion between a mile and a foot. And let's write that down. 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. Okay, so 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. We are given, so what we were given was this. 6,235 feet, and they want to know how many miles is that. So we're first converting it to miles. So if I want miles, miles goes on top, and 5,280 feet goes on the bottom. A foot and a foot will cancel. And now my first conversion is converting feet to miles. Miles is going to be my first conversion. So I'm going to clear my calculator, and I'm going to type in that 6,235 feet times, nope, sorry, this is going to be a division, divided by 5,280. And I get this irrational number here. So let's write 1.18087. Let's write our units, which is miles. Now look up here and ask yourself, can you fill this in? How many miles did we just get? And I'm hoping you will tell me 1, because that's the answer. We just got 1 mile. Let's get rid of that number in front of the decimal. Let's get rid of that 1 by subtracting it. And then we're left with just that decimal. And that decimal is still in miles, right? It's still in miles. And we're going to now convert from miles to yards. That's our second conversion. So I got rid of that decimal, and I'm left with I got rid of the number just leave me with the decimal. So there's my decimal. And now I need to convert this. I need to go from miles to yards. So I'm going to go back down to my formula sheet. And I need to figure out the conversion between a mile and a yard. And it would be this conversion here. So 1 mile is equal to 1760 yards. So that's my conversion. If I want yards now, what I want goes on top. So 1760 goes on top, and 1 mile goes on the bottom. A mile and a mile will cancel. Take that irrational decimal and multiply it by 1760, and we'll get the second part of our answer. Then you would get 318.333 repeating. And our units are yards. Okay, what would you put up here? What can I take from this answer and put up here? Write it in if you think you know what you would do. I hope that you would be saying, oh, I would take that 318 because that's what goes up there. Now that I put that 318 up, I need to get rid of it on my calculator. So I'm going to subtract 318 to give me just that decimal. So just that decimal was 0.333, like all of these threes in yards. Ask yourself, what are you converting that to? We're going from what to what? So we're going from yards to feet. Okay, so now on my formula sheet, I need to find the conversion from a yard to a foot. So a yard to a foot. So take that decimal, and we're always going to multiply it by the conversion. What do I want? I want feet. What you want goes on top always. So I want feet. 3 feet goes on top, and 1 yard goes on the bottom. Again, double check, a yard and a yard cancel. My answer is going to be that decimal times 3. If you get to a point where your very last number is a decimal like this, we could round it. It'll always be like 0.99999. And if that happens, you just tell me that it's 1 foot. So 6,283 feet is 1 mile, 318 yards, and 1 foot. Okay? For this question here, I'm not going to solve it for you because it's identical to the one above it. So I want you to try to do this one on your own. I will give you the solution for this, but please, like I said, follow this video if you need to try to work this one out on your own. So this is going to be one of your practice questions for homework, and I'll give you the answer right now. So double check when you go through this that you get this final answer. 1,703 and 1 foot. So you're going to do practice that one. And then you're going to practice B and C. So just rewrite these. B, 574 inches is equal to, convert it first to yards, take the decimal goes to feet, take that decimal goes to inches. That's what they want for B. For C, rewrite it, 7,390 feet, convert first to miles. So the number in front of the decimal is how many miles you have. Take that decimal and go to yards second, and then from yards, go to feet third. Okay? So you want to be able to do that. Number 13, in 2008, Sandy and Leonoid were the world's tallest living woman and man. Their respective heights are 7 feet 7 inches, 8 feet 5 inches. How many inches shorter is Sandy than Leonoid? Okay, so here's how you do this. I'll show you how to calculate Sandy's height in inches, and then you'll do his height, and then you'll subtract them. So for 13, it says that Sandy is 7 feet. So world's tallest woman in 2008 was recorded at 7 feet 7 inches. What we have to do is we have to convert this all to one conversion. And we always convert it to the smaller one, which is inches. We're going to figure out how many inches total is Sandy. So what I need to do is I need to take this 7 feet and I need to figure out how many inches is 7 feet. So the conversion between a foot and an inch, if you look at your formula sheet, 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So let's take that 7 feet and figure out how many inches is that. So if I want inches, 12 inches goes on top, 1 foot goes on the bottom. So 7 feet in inches, let's see what that would be. 84 inches. So 7 feet is 84 inches. Now, is that how tall she is? Would you say that Sandy's 84 inches tall? No, she is 7 feet 7 inches. So 7 feet is 84 inches. And what I have to add to this is that 7 inches. So Sandy's height is 84 plus 7. She is 91 inches total. What you need to do for his height is the exact same thing. Figure out how many inches 8 feet is. So convert 8 feet to inches, then you're going to add 5 inches to his height, right? So figure out his height in inches. Let's say that worked out to 100. Let's say he was 100 inches tall. If she's 91 inches, the question is how many inches shorter? She would be 9 inches shorter. Okay, so I want you to do all of 7, 8, and 13. And the solutions for this are all on the next page. So you just need to look at questions 7, 8, and 13.